Picture this. A woman sits alone in her kitchen, watching her husband walk out the door with his mistress. He just handed her divorce papers. He called her worthless. He said she was holding him back. She signs without a fight. He smirks. He has no idea that in exactly 72 hours, he will discover that the wife he just threw away is about to become his boss's boss, the owner of the entire company where he works. Because what Derek Morrison didn't know, what he couldn't possibly have imagined, was that his quiet, unambitious wife had just received a phone call from an attorney. Her biological father, a man she never knew existed, had just died, and he left her everything, $380 million, 51% of a $14 billion company, the power to destroy the man who destroyed her. But here's where the story takes a dark turn. Because the people who run that company, they know she's coming, and they will do anything to stop her. They will fabricate evidence. They will buy judges. They will turn her own daughter against her. And when none of that works, they will take the one thing she loves more than any inheritance, her 8-year-old daughter. What happens next will test everything Emma Morrison thought she knew about power, revenge, and what it truly means to win. Value statement, lesson, and meaning. This story carries a powerful truth that most people learn too late. Your worth is never determined by someone else's ability to recognize it. The person who dismisses you today might desperately need you tomorrow. The quiet strength others overlook is often the foundation that outlasts everything built on noise and ego. And sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building a life so meaningful that what they did becomes nothing more than a footnote in your story. The divorce papers landed on the kitchen table with a sound that would echo through Emma Morrison's memory for years to come. Not a crash, not a slam, just a soft thud of manila envelope against worn wood, the kind of sound that ends marriages. She didn't look up immediately. Her laptop screen glowed with the spreadsheet she'd been reviewing. Household finances she managed alone, bills she paid alone, a life she'd built largely alone, while her husband chased promotions and promises. "Emma, we need to talk." Derek's voice carried that particular tone she'd learned to recognize over 5 years of marriage. The tone that said he'd already made a decision and was now graciously informing her of it. She looked up. And there, standing behind her husband like a trophy he'd already won, was Vanessa Hartley. Blonde hair perfectly styled. Designer dress that cost more than Emma's monthly grocery budget. A smile that wasn't quite a smile, more like the expression a cat makes when it's cornered something smaller than itself. "What is she doing here?" Emma asked, though some part of her already knew. Some part of her had known for months, had noticed the late nights and the changed passwords and the way Derek looked at his phone instead of at her. "Moral support," Vanessa said, her voice sweet as antifreeze. "This is hard for Derek. I want a divorce." 3 words, 5 years of marriage, countless sacrifices, endless support, and dreams deferred again and again so Derek could climb his corporate ladder. All of it reduced to 3 words, delivered in their modest apartment while his mistress watched from the doorway. Emma set down her pen. "You brought your mistress to deliver divorce papers," she said slowly, testing each word like someone walking across ice that might crack. "In our home, where our daughter sleeps." Derek's jaw tightened. "See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You're always so judgmental. Vanessa understands ambition. She gets the corporate world. You just hold me back, Emma. You always have." The sheer audacity of it almost made her laugh. Almost. "I hold you back," she repeated, The woman who put you through business school while working 2 jobs. The woman who networked you into 3 promotions. The woman who pays 73% of the bills in this apartment. That woman holds you back. See? You're doing it again, making everything about money. Derek, I literally just stated facts. Numbers. Math. Vanessa touched Derek's arm with practiced intimacy. Baby, don't engage. She's trying to manipulate you. Emma turned to look at her directly for the first time. I'm sorry. Did the woman sleeping with my husband just accuse me of manipulation? Is that what's happening right now? Derek slid the divorce papers across the table. His signature was already there, bold and aggressive, with an unnecessary flourish. The signature of a man who thought he was winning something. I want half of our savings, he said. Fair is fair. Half of our savings, the savings I contributed 80% of. Marriage is a partnership. So is adultery, apparently. Vanessa stepped forward. I have a law degree, you know. We made sure these papers are airtight. A law degree from where? Online. Ah, so you can Google. Impressive. Derek slammed his hand on the table, making Emma's coffee cup rattle. Just sign the papers, Emma. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. She looked at him then, really looked at him, at the man she'd loved since they met at a coffee shop 7 years ago, at the face she'd memorized in happiness and worried over in sickness, at the stranger he'd become somewhere along the way while she wasn't paying attention. You know what, Derek? You're right. Let's not make this hard. She picked up the pen. She signed her name. Clean, efficient, no drama. Derek's expression flickered with something that might have been disappointment. He'd wanted a fight, she realized. He'd wanted tears and begging, and the satisfaction of walking away from someone who desperately wanted him to stay. She gave him none of that. I'll be out by tomorrow, he said, already moving toward the bedroom. You can keep the apartment. How generous. The apartment that's in my name, with the lease I signed, that I pay for. Always about money with you. He disappeared into the bedroom with Vanessa trailing behind him, and Emma sat alone in the kitchen listening to them pack, listening to them laugh about something she couldn't hear, listening to the sounds of her marriage ending, while her signature dried on papers that would supposedly set her free. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her reach for it. Some instinct that this ordinary Tuesday evening was about to become something else entirely. Hello? Am I speaking with Emma Collins? She frowned. Morrison. Emma Morrison. No, ma'am. I'm calling about Emma Collins, your birth name, before the adoption. Emma's hand tightened on the phone. In the background, Derek and Vanessa were arguing about which suitcase to take. Normal sounds, divorce sounds. The sounds of a life falling apart in the most ordinary way possible. Who is this? My name is Robert Carmichael. I'm an attorney representing the estate of Victor Whitmore. Ms. Collins, I'm afraid I have some difficult news, followed by some rather significant news. Victor Whitmore, the tech billionaire, the founder of Whitmore Technologies, the company where Derek had worked for the past 5 years, the company Derek had just mentioned in the same breath as Vanessa's name. I don't understand, Emma said. What does Victor Whitmore have to do with me? Ms. Collins, Victor Whitmore was your biological father, and you are the sole heir to his estate. Silence. In the bedroom, Derek called out, Emma, where's my blue tie, the silk one? Check the closet, she answered automatically, her voice coming from somewhere far away. Left side. Whatever. I'll buy a new one. Vanessa says I need to upgrade my wardrobe anyway. He walked past her, suitcase in hand, Vanessa trailing behind with the smug satisfaction of someone who believes they've won the ultimate prize. Good luck, Emma, Derek said without looking at her. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. They left. The door closed, and Emma Morrison sat alone in her apartment, holding a phone that connected her to an inheritance worth $380 million, while the man who just divorced her for being worthless drove off to celebrate with the woman who'd convinced him to leave. Miss Collins? Robert Carmichael's voice came through the phone. Are you still there? Mr. Carmichael, Emma said slowly. You said Whitmore Technologies? Yes, headquartered right here in Chicago. You'll need to meet with the board within 72 hours to formally accept your inheritance and assume your position as majority shareholder. My husband works there. Soon-to-be ex-husband, Derek Morrison, senior project manager. There was a long pause on the line. I see, Carmichael said finally. That's going to make Monday's board meeting rather interesting. Emma looked at the divorce papers on the table, at Derek's aggressive signature, at her own careful one beside it. Yes, she said, I imagine it will. Morning light filtered through curtains that needed replacing, illuminating an apartment that felt emptier than it had any right to be. Derek had only taken his clothes and some personal items, but the absence of him left a vacuum that seemed to pull at everything else. Emma hadn't slept. She'd spent the night reading and rereading the documents Robert Carmichael had emailed her, trying to make sense of a reality that refused to settle into anything recognizable. Victor Whitmore was her father. Victor Whitmore, who had died 3 weeks ago from cancer, he'd kept private until the end. Victor Whitmore, who had built a technology empire worth $14 billion. Victor Whitmore, who had apparently watched her from a distance her entire life, funding scholarships she thought she'd earned, arranging opportunities she thought she'd created, playing guardian angel to a daughter he'd given away 30 years ago. The letter he'd left her was still open on her laptop screen. She'd read it 11 times. Emma, I was a coward. I chose my company over you. My reputation over my responsibility. I told myself I was protecting you, but I was protecting myself. You deserved a father, and I gave you money instead. I'm sorry, it's not enough. It will never be enough, but everything I built is yours now. Do something better with it than I did. Footsteps in the hallway announced her daughter before the small voice reached her. Mommy, where's Daddy? Lily stood in the doorway, 8 years old and already too perceptive for comfort. She had Derek's eyes, but Emma's mouth, and right now both features were arranged in an expression of confusion that broke Emma's heart. Baby, come sit with me. We need to talk, she explained as gently as she could. Mommy and Daddy weren't going to live together anymore. It wasn't Lily's fault. Both parents loved her very much. All the things the parenting books said to say, though no parenting book had prepared her for what came next. Is it because you're boring? The word hit like a physical blow. What? Daddy said you're boring? He said Vanessa is fun and you're boring, and that's why he's sad all the time. Emma's throat tightened. When did Daddy say that? When he thought I was sleeping. He talks to Vanessa on the phone at night. He says you don't understand him. He says you're just a meal ticket, and Vanessa is his soulmate. Meal ticket. Her husband had called her a meal ticket to his mistress, while their daughter pretended to sleep in the next room. Lily, sweetie, that's not... I want to live with Daddy and Vanessa. The words landed like stones in still water, sending ripples through everything Emma thought she understood about her own child. You want to live with Daddy? Vanessa said she'd teach me to swim. She has a pool at her building. She said you probably can't even swim because you're always working. Emma realized. with the kind of clarity that comes only from genuine devastation, that Vanessa hadn't just stolen her husband. She'd been cultivating her daughter. Weeks or months of careful manipulation, turning an 8-year-old against her mother, one conversation at a time. Lily, whatever Vanessa told you, she's nice, Mommy. She buys me presents. She says when her and Daddy get married, I can be the flower girl and wear a princess dress. When? Not if. Vanessa had already been planning the wedding while Derek was still signing divorce papers. Emma wanted to scream. She wanted to shake her daughter and make her understand that Vanessa was a manipulator who had deliberately destroyed their family. She wanted to expose every lie, every deception, every calculated move in Vanessa's campaign to steal everything Emma had built. But Lily was 8 years old, and 8-year-olds believe in princess dresses and swimming pools and adults who buy them presents. I love you, Emma said instead. No matter what happens, no matter what anyone tells you, I love you more than anything in the world. Lily nodded, but her eyes were already drifting toward her phone, toward the messages Emma knew Vanessa had been sending, toward a future that didn't include a mother who was always working and never fun. Later that morning, Emma met with Robert Carmichael in his downtown office. The space was exactly what she'd expected from a man who charged $1,500 an hour. Mahogany furniture, original art, and a view of the Chicago skyline that probably cost more than her annual salary. Your father left you 51% of Whitmore Technologies, Carmichael explained, sliding documents across his desk. That's controlling interest. The company is currently valued at $14.2 billion. And no one knows about me? The board knows Victor had a secret heir. They've been preparing for an announcement, expecting some distant relative. They have no idea you've been living in Chicago this whole time, married to one of their own employees. Emma thought about Derek's smug face as he handed her the divorce papers, about Vanessa's predatory smile, about Lily asking to live with the woman who was systematically turning her against her mother. When is the announcement scheduled? Tuesday. But Ms. Morrison, I need to warn you. There are people on that board who will resist your leadership. You have no corporate experience. Some may try to challenge the will. Let them try. Carmichael smiled slightly. Your father said you'd say that. Emma left his office with 72 hours to claim an inheritance worth hundreds of millions of dollars. 72 hours before Derek would learn that the wife he'd discarded as worthless was now his boss's boss's boss. She walked through downtown Chicago, past the glass tower of Whitmore Technologies, where Derek was probably at his desk right now, probably texting Vanessa about dinner plans, probably congratulating himself on escaping a marriage to someone so clearly beneath his ambitions. For the first time since the divorce papers landed on her table, Emma smiled. But she didn't notice the man watching her from across the street. She didn't see him make a phone call, didn't hear him say the words that would set events in motion she couldn't possibly anticipate. It's her, Colin's daughter. She's meeting with Carmichael. A pause. Understood. We'll handle it. Emma walked on, planning her revenge, unaware that someone else was planning something far more devastating. Friday morning began with a knock that would shatter everything. Emma had spent the past 2 days in intensive preparation. She'd reviewed financial reports, studied board member profiles, and rehearsed the moment when she would walk into that boardroom and watch Derek's face transform from smug satisfaction to horrified recognition. She was ready. She was powerful. She was about to become one of the wealthiest women in Chicago. And then someone knocked on her door. 2 police officers stood in the hallway. Behind them, Derek wore an expression of practiced concern that didn't reach his eyes. Vanessa stood slightly back, her hand resting on Derek's arm with possessive familiarity, and next to them, a woman in a severe business suit held a folder that would destroy Emma's carefully constructed plans. Ma'am, we have a court order for temporary emergency custody transfer. The words didn't make sense at first. They bounced around Emma's brain like balls in a pinball machine, refusing to settle into meaning. What? That's not possible? We haven't even filed for custody arrangements. The divorce was just, I'm Sandra Vance, attorney for Mr. Morrison. The woman in the suit stepped forward with the kind of smile that never touched the eyes. Based on evidence of an unstable home environment, a judge has granted temporary custody to my client, pending full psychological evaluation. Unstable environment? What evidence? This is insane. Sandra handed her a folder. Inside, Emma found photographs of her apartment that she didn't recognize. Rooms made to look chaotic, dirty, dangerous. Dishes piled in sinks she kept spotless. Clothes scattered across floors she vacuumed weekly. A narrative of neglect constructed from staged photographs and lies. Worse than the photos were the text messages, screenshots of conversations she'd never had, threats she'd never made, rants about Derek and Vanessa that bore her name but not her words. I never sent these texts, Emma said, her voice rising with panic she couldn't control. These photos are staged. Someone broke into my apartment and... Ma'am, please remain calm. The officer's hand moved toward his belt, a subtle warning. The court order is valid. We're here to execute a lawful transfer. Derek stepped forward, his face arranged in an expression of wounded concern. Emma, we're worried about you. You've been under so much stress. We just want what's best for Lily. What's best for Lily is staying with her mother, not with the woman who... Ma'am? The officer's voice sharpened. I need you to step back and allow us to proceed. Lily appeared in the hallway behind Emma, her backpack already on, her small face confused and frightened by the uniforms and the tension and the adults who wouldn't stop arguing. Mommy? What's happening? Emma dropped to her knees, pulling her daughter close. Baby, there's been a mistake. Mommy's going to fix it, okay? I promise. I'm going to fix everything. Lily, come with Daddy. Derek's voice was gentle, warm, the voice of the man Emma had married before Vanessa rewrote his personality. We're going to go stay at Vanessa's place for a little while. Remember her pool? Lily's eyes lit up despite her fear. The pool? Can we go swimming? Of course, sweetheart. Every day if you want. Emma watched her daughter's loyalty shift in real time, watched the promise of swimming pools outweigh the security of her mother's arms, watched 8 years of sacrifice lose to 6 months of strategic gift-giving. I want to stay with Mommy. The words were quiet, uncertain, but they were there. Lily was choosing her. Derek's expression flickered with something ugly before smoothing back into concern. Lily, sweetheart, remember what we talked about? Remember what the nice lady said about Mommy needing some time to get better? But Mommy's not sick. Not that kind of sick, baby. Mommy's just very tired and very stressed, and sometimes mommies need to take a break so they can be the best mommies they can be. Right, Emma? He looked at her, over their daughter's head, and Emma saw the truth in his eyes. This wasn't just about custody. This was punishment. This was Derek asserting power he'd never had during their marriage, taking the one thing Emma valued more than any inheritance or corporate empire. You can't do this, Emma whispered. The court says we can. Sandra Vance stepped forward with papers that probably weren't legal, with orders that probably wouldn't survive scrutiny, but that didn't matter right now. Right now, uniformed officers stood in Emma's apartment with the authority to take her child, and nothing she said would change that. Mommy, I'm scared. I know, baby, I know. But you need to go with Daddy for just a little while, okay? Just until Mommy can talk to some people and explain that there's been a mistake. You promise? I promise. I will always come for you, no matter what. Do you understand? Lily nodded, but her eyes were wet and her lip was trembling, and when Derek took her hand and led her away, she kept looking back at Emma with an expression that would haunt her mother for weeks to come. Vanessa paused in the doorway. She didn't speak, didn't gloat, didn't do anything that could be used against her later. She simply smiled, a small, satisfied expression that communicated everything words could not. I win. The door closed. Emma stood alone in her empty apartment, custody order in hand, watching through the window as Derek loaded their daughter into his car and drove away. Her phone rang. Ms. Morrison, this is Robert Carmichael. I've just received some disturbing news. It seems that Sandra Vance, the attorney representing your husband, is on retainer with Whitmore Technologies. She has been for years. Emma's legs gave out. She sank onto her couch, phone pressed to her ear, trying to process implications that kept multiplying. It gets worse, Carmichael continued. The judge who signed that custody order, Patricia Holloway, has received substantial campaign contributions from Whitmore board members, specifically from a man named Marcus Webb. Who is Marcus Webb? Current acting CEO, your father's former protege, and the man who will lose everything if you claim your inheritance. The pieces clicked together with horrible clarity. This wasn't Derek being vindictive. This wasn't Vanessa being territorial. This was a coordinated attack by people with money and power and every reason to destroy her before she could threaten their positions. They know who I am, Emma said. It appears so. They're using my husband to destroy me. They're using everything they can. Ms. Morrison, I strongly suggest we accelerate our timeline. But Emma wasn't listening anymore. She was looking at the custody order in her hand, at the fabricated evidence, and bought judges and corporate machinery designed to crush people like her. She'd thought she understood power. She'd thought having money meant having control. Now she understood the truth. Power wasn't something you inherited. It was something you fought for. And the people who currently held it would do anything to keep it, including taking her daughter. Saturday brought destruction on a scale Emma couldn't have imagined. She woke to her phone buzzing with notifications, hundreds of them, social media alerts and news mentions and messages from numbers she didn't recognize. Her hands trembled as she opened her browser and typed her own name. The headlines hit like physical blows. Whitmore heir revealed, secret daughter exposed in messy divorce. Scandal, gold, digger, or grieving daughter? The woman claiming billions from tech giant's estate. Unstable mother loses custody amid inheritance controversy. The articles contained everything. Her adoption records, which were supposed to be sealed. Her financial history twisted to suggest she'd married Derek knowing about his connection to Whitmore Technologies. Photos from her apartment, the same staged images from the custody hearing, now broadcast to millions of people who would never know they were lies. The comments were worse. Another con artist trying to steal from a dead man's legacy. Convenient timing that she shows up right after he dies. Poor Derek. Imagine finding out your wife was hiding this the whole time. She deserves to lose her kid. Women like this shouldn't be mothers. Emma read until she couldn't anymore, until the words blurred together into a wall of hatred aimed at a person who didn't exist, a monster constructed from fabricated evidence and strategic leaks. Her phone rang. Robert Carmichael, his voice tight with controlled fury. The board has called an emergency meeting for tomorrow. They're voting to challenge the validity of Victor's will before you can formally accept your inheritance. Can they do that? They're claiming Victor wasn't of sound mind when he added you to his will. They have doctors willing to testify that his cancer treatment affected his judgment, medical experts who never examined him, rendering opinions based on records they couldn't possibly have accessed legally. Emma laughed. A sound without humor. So they're going to steal my inheritance by lying about my father's mental state. Money makes lies very convincing, Ms. Morrison, and right now, they have all the money. There's more, isn't there? A pause. Derek filed a restraining order against you this morning. You can't come within 500 feet of him, Vanessa or Lily, until the custody hearing. The phone nearly slipped from Emma's fingers. I can't see my own daughter? I'm so sorry. I've never seen an attack this coordinated, this vicious. Someone wants you destroyed, and they're willing to spend whatever it takes to make that happen. After the call ended, Emma sat on the floor of Lily's room, surrounded by toys and drawings and the lingering scent of her daughter's shampoo. She found a picture Lily had drawn recently, a family portrait in crayon. 3 figures stood in front of a house: Daddy, Vanessa, me, no mother, no Emma, just a family that didn't include her anymore. She broke then, completely and totally, crying until her chest ached and her throat burned, and there were no tears left to shed. She'd lost everything: her daughter, her reputation, her inheritance, her future. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Walk away, drop the inheritance claim. You'll get your daughter back. This is your only warning. Emma stared at the message for a long time. The smart thing to do, the safe thing, would be to accept defeat. Take whatever scraps they offered. Rebuild a quiet life somewhere far from Chicago and corporate boards and people with enough power to crush anyone who threatened them. But then she looked at Lily's drawing again, at the family that didn't include her, at the future her daughter had been taught to imagine, one where mommy simply disappeared. Something shifted inside her. The grief didn't vanish, but something harder emerged alongside it, something that had been dormant for years, buried under compromise and sacrifice, and the slow erosion of a marriage she'd been trying to save. Emma Morrison had spent her entire adult life supporting other people's ambitions. She'd put her husband through school. She'd built his career. She'd raised his daughter while he climbed ladders and collected accolades and gradually decided she wasn't worth keeping. Now she had one chance to build something for herself, one chance to prove that she was worth more than a custody order and a stack of lies. She picked up her phone and called Robert Carmichael. I need a lawyer, a real one, someone who knows how to fight people like Marcus Webb. I know someone. Miranda Cole. She's expensive, she's aggressive, and she's never lost a case against a Fortune 500 company. Can she win against someone who's willing to kidnap children and fabricate evidence? If anyone can, it's her. Set up a meeting, tonight. She hung up and looked around Lily's room one more time. Then she stood, wiped her face, and began to plan. The woman who had signed those divorce papers without fighting, the woman who had let her husband walk away with nothing but a few sarcastic remarks, that woman was gone now. What emerged in her place was something harder, something that had been waiting her entire life for permission to exist. They wanted a fight? Fine. She'd give them a war. Sunday morning, 10 a.m., 3 hours before the board's emergency meeting, Emma sat in Miranda Cole's office, surrounded by documents that would either save her or bury her forever. Miranda was everything Robert Carmichael had promised: sharp-featured, expensively dressed, with eyes that missed nothing, and a reputation for destroying corporate executives who thought their money made them untouchable. Marcus Webb has been embezzling from Whitmore Technologies for 6 years, Miranda said, spreading photographs and bank statements across her desk. Shell companies in Delaware, fake contracts with vendors that don't exist. Offshore accounts in 3 different countries, total theft, $43.7 million. Emma studied the evidence. How did you get this? His former assistant, a woman named Patricia Reeves. She's been keeping records for years, waiting for someone to listen. Webb promoted her to keep her quiet, then threatened her when she asked for a raise. She's ready to testify. Will that be enough to stop the board vote? Miranda smiled, the expression of a predator scenting blood. It'll be enough to have him arrested. Once the board sees that their acting CEO is a criminal, the challenge to your father's will becomes irrelevant. Who's going to believe a thief's accusations about your mental fitness to lead? What about Lily? What about the custody situation? Once you control Whitmore, Sandra Vance loses her protection. The fabricated evidence falls apart under real scrutiny. Judge Holloway recuses herself rather than face an investigation into her campaign contributions. You'll have your daughter back within a week. A week? 7 more days of Lily being manipulated by Vanessa, turned against her mother, taught to believe that the woman who'd raised her didn't want her anymore. That's too long. I know, but it's the best we can do legally, unless you want to try something that isn't legal, in which case you're talking to the wrong lawyer. Emma shook her head. No, if I'm going to run my father's company, I need to do it the right way. I need to be better than Marcus Webb, not worse. Then trust the process. We walk into that boardroom in 3 hours and we burn Marcus Webb's empire to the ground. After that, everything else falls into place. 3 hours later, Emma pushed open the doors of the Whitmore Technologies boardroom. 12 faces turned toward her. 11 showed various degrees of shock, confusion, and alarm. The 12th, Marcus Webb, showed nothing at all. He sat at the head of the table in a chair that still bore the imprint of Victor Whitmore's authority. Silver-haired and impeccably groomed, the kind of man who'd spent so long wielding power that he'd forgotten what it felt like to have it challenged. "Ms. Collins," he said smoothly, not bothering to stand, "this is a closed meeting. You're not authorized to be here. It's Morrison, actually. And as the 51% shareholder of this company, I'm authorized to be anywhere I want." She walked to the head of the table. Marcus didn't move. "Please," Emma said. "Sit down, Marcus. You're going to want to be sitting for this." Miranda began distributing folders to each board member while Robert Carmichael took his place beside Emma, his presence a reminder that she wasn't alone in this fight. "What you're looking at," Miranda announced, "is documentation of 6 years of embezzlement by Marcus Webb. Shell companies, fraudulent contracts, falsified expense reports, total estimated theft, $43.7 million. The room exploded. Board members shouted questions, demanded explanations, turned on Marcus, with the particular fury of people who'd trusted someone only to discover that trust had been betrayed. Marcus tried to defend himself, tried to claim the evidence was fabricated, but his voice grew weaker as the documentation grew more damning. Bank records, email chains, testimony from accountants who'd helped him hide the money, everything Miranda had promised, and more. "This is a setup," Marcus insisted, sweat beginning to show on his forehead. "She's trying to discredit me so she can steal the company. Victor Whitmore never wanted her to have any of this. He told me himself that his daughter was a disappointment, that he regretted ever—" "My father left me a letter," Emma interrupted, "written in his own hand, witnessed by 3 attorneys. Would you like me to read it to the board, or should we discuss what he actually thought of me versus what he thought of the man who was stealing from him?" Marcus's face went white. "Here's what's going to happen," Emma continued, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. "You're going to resign, today. You're going to return every cent you stole, plus interest. You're going to drop the challenge to my father's will. In exchange, I won't press criminal charges. You can't do this. I can. I am. Do we have a deal? Or should I call the FBI agents who are waiting in the lobby? The room went silent. Marcus looked around at his fellow board members, searching for allies, finding none. One by one, they looked away, unwilling to stake their own careers on a man who'd been stealing from them for years. Fine, Marcus said finally. The word coming out like it was being torn from him. Fine, but this isn't over. You have no idea how to run a company like this. You'll destroy everything Victor built within a year. Maybe, but at least I'll be destroying something that belongs to me. Marcus stood, gathered what dignity he could, and walked out of the boardroom. The doors swung shut behind him, with a finality that made several board members flinch. Helen Ross, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes, looked at Emma with an expression that might have been respect. Miss Morrison, what would you like us to do now? For now, let's finish this meeting properly. We have a lot of work to do. 4 hours later, Emma left Whitmore Technologies as its majority shareholder and acting CEO. The media had caught wind of the drama, and reporters clustered outside the building, shouting questions about Marcus Webb's resignation and Emma's dramatic entrance. She gave them nothing. No comments, no interviews, no expressions of triumph that could be used against her later. She simply walked to her car, got in, and drove away. But alone in her car, stuck in Chicago traffic, Emma allowed herself one moment of genuine feeling. She'd won, against all odds, against enemies with more money and power and connections than she'd ever imagined. She'd won. Her phone buzzed with a text from Miranda. Board challenge dropped. Webb's lawyers are negotiating his resignation terms. You did it. Emma smiled for the first time in what felt like years. Then her phone buzzed again. This time, the message was from Derek. Emma, I need you to listen to me. They have Lily. Marcus has Lily. They took her from Vanessa's apartment this morning. He says if you don't give up the company, if you don't walk away from everything, he's going to hurt her. The smile died. The car seemed to shrink around her, and Emma Morrison understood, with devastating clarity, that her victory had just become the beginning of something far worse. The warehouse where they were keeping Lily was on the outskirts of Chicago, in an industrial district that had been dying slowly for decades. Emma knew this because Miranda's investigators had tracked the signal from Lily's tablet, the one Vanessa had given her, the one that was still broadcasting location data to anyone who knew how to look. But knowing where Lily was and getting her back were two very different things. Marcus has hired private security, Miranda explained over the phone, her voice tight with controlled urgency. Former military, trained in extraction scenarios. If we go in without proper backup, people could get hurt, including Lily. Then what do? We do exactly what Marcus expects. You hold the press conference, you announce that you're rejecting the inheritance, and while he's watching you surrender, my team moves in. What if something goes wrong? Then the FBI is standing by. I've already briefed them on the situation. They're treating it as a kidnapping, which means they can act without waiting for local authorities. Emma stood in the lobby of Whitmore Technologies, surrounded by cameras and microphones and reporters who thought they were about to witness the end of a corporate drama. None of them knew about the parallel operation happening 20 miles away, or the 8-year-old girl sitting in a warehouse, waiting for her mother to save her. Are you sure this will work? No, Miranda admitted. But it's the best chance we have, Emma. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Trust. Such a small word for such an enormous leap. Yes. Then go out there and give the performance of your life. Emma walked to the podium. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, and in the back of the room, watching with an expression of smug satisfaction, stood Marcus Webb. He'd come to watch her surrender personally, to savor the moment when all his plans came together and the woman who'd threatened his empire finally bent to his will. Emma gripped the podium and began to speak. Thank you all for coming. I have an announcement to make regarding my position at Whitmore Technologies. Marcus's smile widened. When I learned of my father's passing and my unexpected inheritance, I felt overwhelmed. The responsibility, the weight of his legacy, and recent personal difficulties have made me realize that I may not be the right person to lead this company. Gasps from the crowd. Marcus's smile became predatory. Therefore, I am announcing my intention to... Her phone buzzed in her pocket. One word from Miranda. Acquired. Emma's expression changed. The mask of defeat fell away, revealing something harder and far more dangerous underneath. Actually, she said, let me rephrase that. Marcus's smile faltered. I am announcing my intention to remain as majority shareholder and acting CEO of Whitmore Technologies. And I am also announcing that Marcus Webb is being arrested right now for kidnapping, extortion, embezzlement, and approximately 15 other federal charges that I'm probably forgetting. The room erupted. Marcus tried to run. 2 FBI agents stepped in front of him before he'd taken 3 steps. On the screens behind Emma, footage began playing, security camera images of Marcus's men entering Vanessa's building, carrying a struggling child to a waiting van, loading her into a vehicle that could be traced directly to accounts Marcus controlled. You wanted to make a deal, Marcus? Emma said, her voice cutting through the chaos. Here's my counteroffer. Prison. She didn't stay to watch him being handcuffed. She was already running, pushing through the crowd of reporters, ignoring the shouted questions and the flash of cameras. Miranda had a car waiting outside, engine running, and within seconds, they were speeding toward the warehouse, where Lily was being held. The scene when they arrived looked like something from an action movie. FBI vehicles, flashing lights, agents in tactical gear, escorting handcuffed men from the building. And there, wrapped in a shock blanket and surrounded by paramedics, sat Lily. Mommy Mo, Emma ran. She'd never moved so fast in her life, covering the distance between them and what felt like a single heartbeat. And then Lily was in her arms, small and warm and alive, crying into her shoulder, while Emma held on so tight she might never let go. I knew you'd come, Lily sobbed. I told the bad men. I said my mommy would find me. I will always find you, baby. Always, no matter what. They said you didn't want me. They said you gave me away because you wanted the money instead of me. Emma's heart broke and reformed in the space of a single breath. That was a lie, sweetheart. Everything they told you was a lie. I love you more than any amount of money in the world. More than anything. Do you understand? I love you too, Mommy. I'm sorry I said I wanted to live with Daddy. I didn't mean it. I was just scared. I know, baby. I know. Derek appeared at the edge of the crime scene, looking more broken than Emma had ever seen him. He'd been questioned by the FBI, cleared of direct involvement but implicated in the conspiracy through his relationship with Marcus. His career was over, his reputation was destroyed, and the woman he'd left his wife for had disappeared the moment things got difficult, proving that Vanessa's loyalty had always been conditional. Emma, he said, his voice cracking, is she okay? Is Lily okay? Emma looked at him over their daughter's head, the man she'd married, the man who'd betrayed her, the man who'd let himself be used as a weapon against his own family. She's safe, Emma said. No thanks to you. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what Marcus was planning. I thought he was just helping me get custody. I didn't know he'd take her. I didn't know. Stop! Derek stopped. You didn't know because you didn't want to know. You didn't ask questions because the answers might have made you uncomfortable. You let yourself be manipulated because it was easier than thinking for yourself. I'm sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix what happened. Sorry doesn't undo the terror our daughter experienced. Sorry doesn't give me back the days I spent thinking I might never see her again. Derek nodded, tears streaming down his face. What do you want me to do? Emma held Lily closer, feeling her daughter's heartbeat against her own chest. Right now, I want you to go home. We'll talk about custody arrangements when things settle down. But Derek? Yes? If you ever put our daughter in danger again, I will use every resource I have to make sure you never see her again. Do you understand? He understood. She could see it in his eyes, the recognition that the power dynamic had shifted permanently. He wasn't married to a quiet wife who supported his ambitions anymore. He was the ex-husband of one of the most powerful women in Chicago, and his access to their daughter depended entirely on her willingness to grant it. I understand, he said. He left. Emma carried Lily to the waiting car, wrapped her in blankets, and held her during the entire drive back to the city. Miranda handled the press, the police, the endless questions from people who wanted to understand how a custody dispute had escalated into a kidnapping plot. But Emma didn't care about any of that. She had her daughter back. Nothing else mattered. 6 months passed. The news cycle moved on to other scandals, other dramas, other people's tragedies. Marcus Webb pleaded guilty to multiple federal charges and was sentenced to 23 years in prison. Sandra Vance was disbarred. Judge Holloway resigned rather than face an investigation into her corrupt rulings. And Emma Morrison began the slow work of rebuilding. Whitmore Technologies thrived under her leadership. She brought in ethical consultants, restructured the board, and implemented transparency measures that made the company a model for corporate responsibility. Stock prices rose, employee satisfaction improved. The business press that had once called her a gold digger now praised her as a visionary leader. But the professional success was secondary to the personal healing. Lily went to therapy twice a week, working through the trauma of her kidnapping with a specialist who knew how to help children process experiences too big for their small minds to contain. She had nightmares sometimes, and on those nights Emma held her until dawn, whispering promises of safety until they both fell asleep. The custody arrangement with Derek was complicated but functional. He had Lily on weekends, supervised at first, then gradually unsupervised as he proved he could be trusted. He'd changed since the kidnapping, humbled by his role in the disaster, determined to become the father Lily deserved. He was living in a small apartment now, working at a community center, teaching job skills to at-risk youth. The corporate ladder he'd spent years climbing had collapsed beneath him, and in its wreckage, he'd found something that looked almost like purpose. Emma visited him there one afternoon, 6 months to the day since Lily's rescue. "You look different," she said, taking in the modest surroundings, the lack of designer furniture, the absence of any of the status symbols he'd once valued so highly. Good different or bad different? Just different. They sat on his tiny balcony, overlooking a parking lot instead of a skyline, drinking coffee from mismatched mugs. "I've been thinking about what you said," Derek told her, "about how I measured value, about what actually matters. And I was wrong about everything. I spent my whole life chasing things that didn't mean anything, and I threw away the only thing that did." Emma waited. "I'm not asking you to take me back," he continued. "I know that's not possible. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I lost. Not the money, not the inheritance. You, the person you are, the person I never really saw. What happened to Vanessa?" Derek laughed without humor. "She left about 6 hours after I resigned. Found someone else on the executive track. I think she's engaged now. Wow. 6 whole hours. She really did have feelings for you. Your sarcasm has gotten meaner. Being kidnapped and blackmailed does that to a person. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun set over Chicago. Two people who'd once promised each other forever and were now learning what it meant to be something else entirely. I want to be better, Derek said finally. For Lily, I want to be the kind of father she can actually respect. Then be better. It's not complicated, Derek. It's just hard. Is that what you're doing? Being better? Emma thought about the question, about the company she was building, about the foundation she'd created in her father's name, about the woman she was becoming, one decision at a time. I'm trying, she said. Some days I succeed, some days I fail, but I keep trying. That's more than I ever did. Yes, it is. She stood to leave, but paused at the door. Derek? Yeah? Lily loves you. Despite everything, she still loves you. Don't waste that. She left him sitting on his balcony, staring out at a future that looked nothing like the one he'd planned, but might, if he worked hard enough, become something worth having. 1 year after her father's death, Emma Morrison stood at the window of her office at Whitmore Technologies and watched the sun rise over Chicago. She'd earned this view. Not inherited it, not married into it, earned it through work and sacrifice and the refusal to surrender when everything seemed lost. Her phone buzzed with a text from James Thornton, the pediatric surgeon she'd been dating for 3 months. Miss you. Dinner tonight? She smiled. Miss you too. Pick me up at 7. James was nothing like Derek. Quiet where Derek had been loud. Thoughtful where Derek had been impulsive. Present in ways that Derek, even at his best, had never managed to be. She wasn't sure if what they had would last. She'd learned to be cautious about forever, but for now, it was good. Real. Something worth protecting. Her assistant knocked. Ms. Morrison, your 9 o'clock is here. Send them in. The door opened, and Lily bounded into the room, followed at a more sedate pace by Derek. Mommy, look what I made. Lily held up a drawing, crayon on construction paper, the kind of art that only makes sense to parents and the children who create it. But Emma could make out 3 figures: a tall woman with yellow hair, a smaller girl with pigtails, and a man standing slightly apart, but still part of the scene. That's beautiful, baby. Is that us? That's you and me and Daddy. I made one for your office and one for Daddy's apartment. Emma looked at Derek over Lily's head. He shrugged. A small, rueful gesture that acknowledged everything that had passed between them without needing to speak it aloud. Thank you, sweetheart. I'll hang it right here where I can see it every day. After they left, Lily chattering about her weekend plans, and Derek doing his best to keep up with her energy, Emma sat at her desk and looked at the drawing. A family, fractured but still connected. Not the one she'd imagined when she married Derek, but real nonetheless. Her computer chimed with an incoming video call. The board meeting she'd been preparing for, a discussion of quarterly results and strategic initiatives, and all the details that came with running a $14 billion company. She answered the call, settled into her role as CEO, and did the work. But between agenda items and financial projections, she found herself thinking about the journey that had brought her here. The divorce papers that had ended one life and begun another. The inheritance that had transformed everything she thought she knew about herself. The daughter she'd almost lost, and the ex-husband who was slowly becoming someone she could almost respect. None of it had been easy. All of it had been necessary. And somewhere in the distance, in a federal prison, where he'd spend the next 2 decades contemplating his choices, Marcus Webb was learning what it meant to lose everything. Justice, Emma had discovered, wasn't about revenge. It was about consequences, about systems that worked the way they were supposed to, about truth having more power than lies, even when the lies had money behind them. The meeting ended, the sun climbed higher over Chicago, and Emma Morrison went back to building something her father had only dreamed of, a company that valued people over profit, integrity over appearances, and the kind of power that came from lifting others up instead of pushing them down. It wasn't the ending she'd expected. It was better. The letter was hidden in her father's files, buried beneath decades of corporate documents and personal correspondence. Emma found it on a Tuesday evening, 1 year and 3 months after Victor Whitmore's death, while she was reviewing old materials for a company history project. The envelope was addressed to her in handwriting she recognized, but the date on the letter was wrong, 2 years before her father died, when he was supposedly still keeping her existence a secret from everyone except his lawyers. She opened it. Emma, if you're reading this, then my first letter reached you, and you've probably claimed your inheritance. I hope you found happiness with it. I hope you've built something meaningful. But there's something I didn't tell you, something I couldn't put in the official will because it would have raised too many questions. You weren't my only child. Emma's heart stopped. 32 years ago, a year before you were born, I had another daughter, your sister. I placed her for adoption too. The same cowardice, the same shame, the same terrible choice. I lost track of her for years. I couldn't find her, couldn't discover what had happened to her. But 6 months before I wrote this letter, I finally located her. Emma, your sister works for Whitmore Technologies. She's been there for years. She doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know about you. And she has no idea that the man who gave her every promotion, every opportunity, was actually her father, watching from a distance, the same way I watched you. Her name is Vanessa Hartley. The letter fell from Emma's hands. Vanessa, the woman who had destroyed her marriage, the woman who had stolen her husband, the woman who had helped kidnap her daughter, her sister. Emma read the rest of the letter in a daze, barely absorbing the words. Victor's explanations, his justifications, his hope that someday Emma would find Vanessa and build the family he'd never had the courage to give them. Find her, Emma. Find your sister. And maybe together, you can build the family I never had the courage to give either of you. She sat in her father's office, her office now, surrounded by everything she'd inherited, and tried to make sense of a truth that refused to settle into any shape she recognized. Vanessa was her sister. Vanessa, who had grown up without knowing where she came from. Vanessa, who had filled the hole inside herself with ambition and manipulation and other people's husbands. Vanessa, who had done terrible things, but had never known the one thing that might have made her different. Emma picked up her phone. She found Vanessa's number in her contacts, a remnant from the divorce proceedings that she'd never bothered to delete. Her finger hovered over the call button for a long moment. What would she say? How do you tell someone that the father they never knew was the same man who employed them for years, watching from a distance, shaping their career, without ever revealing himself? How do you tell someone they have a sister? She pressed the button. Vanessa answered on the third ring. Hello? Vanessa, it's Emma. Silence. I need to see you. There's something you need to know. More silence. Then, carefully, if this is about Derek, it's not about Derek. It's about Victor Whitmore and why he really promoted you all those years. Longest silence yet. What are you talking about? Not over the phone. Can you meet me? Tomorrow morning. There's a coffee shop on Michigan Avenue, the one with the blue awning. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't. I wouldn't, if I were you. But Vanessa, I swear to you, What I have to tell you will change everything you think you know about yourself. And I think you deserve to hear it, even if you hate me. A pause that stretched into eternity. Fine. Tomorrow, 9 o'clock. Thank you. Emma hung up. She looked at her father's letter again, at the secrets he'd kept and the messes he'd left behind. Then she looked at Lily's drawing, still hanging on her wall, the one that showed a fractured family somehow still connected. Tomorrow, she would tell Vanessa the truth. Tomorrow, everything would change again. But tonight, she had dinner with James, and bedtime stories with Lily, and all the ordinary moments that made up a life worth living. The extraordinary could wait until morning. The coffee shop was quiet at 9 in the morning, most of the breakfast rush already gone, the lunch crowd not yet arrived. Emma sat at a corner table, with 2 cups of coffee, watching the door, waiting for the woman who had once been her enemy. Vanessa arrived exactly on time. She looked different than Emma remembered, smaller somehow, less polished. The past year hadn't been kind to her. Her perfectly styled hair was now pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her designer clothes had been replaced by something off the rack. The predatory confidence that had once defined her had faded into something more uncertain. She sat down across from Emma without speaking. "Thank you for coming." Vanessa shrugged. "You said it would change everything. I figured I didn't have much left to lose." Emma slid the letter across the table. "Read this." Vanessa read. Emma watched her face change as the truth sank in. Confusion first, then disbelief, then something that looked almost like hope, before hardening into defensive skepticism. This could be fake. You could have written this yourself. I could have, but I didn't. There's a DNA test facility 2 blocks from here. We can walk over right now and confirm what that letter says. Why would you do that? Why would you tell me any of this? I helped destroy your marriage. I helped Marcus Webb try to destroy your life. Why would you give me this? Emma had thought about this question for weeks, turning it over in her mind, trying to understand her own motivations. Because I know what it's like to grow up without knowing where you came from. Because I spent my whole life feeling like there was something missing, some piece of myself that I couldn't find. And then I discovered that my father had been watching me all along, shaping my life from a distance, giving me everything except himself. She paused. You had that same experience, Vanessa, the same absent father, the same carefully orchestrated opportunities, the same hole inside you that nothing could fill. The only difference is that you tried to fill it with power and manipulation, while I tried to fill it with other people's approval. Vanessa's eyes were wet. I didn't know. I know. All those years, I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. Like everyone else, had something I didn't have. Some foundation, some security. I thought if I could just get enough success, enough money, enough control, I could build that foundation myself. How did that work out? A bitter laugh. About as well as you'd expect. They sat in silence for a while. 2 women shaped by the same absent father, broken in different ways, trying to find some common ground in the wreckage. I'm not going to pretend we're going to be a family, Emma said finally. What you did, helping Marcus, helping Derek, almost getting my daughter killed, I don't know if I can forgive that. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Then what are you asking for? Vanessa looked at her with something Emma had never seen in her eyes before. Not calculation, not strategy, just raw, desperate honesty. A chance to be different, to be better. I know I don't deserve it, but if there's any part of you that understands what it's like to grow up without knowing where you came from, maybe you understand why I became who I became. Emma considered this for a long moment. I'm not offering you a job. I'm not offering you money. I'm not offering you anything except this, coffee. Once a month, we can talk, We can figure out who we are to each other. That's it? That's it. And Vanessa, if you ever threaten my family again, I will destroy you, sister or not." Vanessa nodded slowly. "Fair?" They sat in silence for a while longer, two women at the beginning of something neither of them could name. "One more thing," Emma said. "What?" "You're paying for coffee. Consider it the beginning of a very long repayment plan." For the first time since she'd sat down, Vanessa smiled. "Fair?" They finished their coffee. They exchanged phone numbers. Real ones this time. Not the weaponized contact information of enemies, but the tentative connection of people who might someday become something else. And when Emma walked out of that coffee shop into the Chicago sunlight, she felt something she hadn't expected. Hope. Not for a perfect ending, not for a fairy tale reconciliation, but for something more realistic and perhaps more valuable. The possibility that two people shaped by the same tragedy might learn to shape something different together. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lily. "Mom, when are you coming home? James is making pancakes." Emma smiled. "Coming now," she typed back. "Save me some?" She walked toward her car, toward her daughter, toward the life she'd built from the ruins of the one that had been destroyed. Behind her, Vanessa stood at the coffee shop window, watching her sister leave, holding a letter that explained everything and nothing all at once. Two daughters of Victor Whitmore, two women who might someday be sisters, two stories that were only beginning. Emma drove home to pancakes and laughter and the ordinary chaos of a Saturday morning. James had gotten flour in his hair trying to flip pancakes dramatically. Lily was critiquing his technique with the brutal honesty of a 9-year-old. And in the middle of it all, Emma found exactly what she'd spent her whole life searching for. Not wealth, not power, not revenge on the people who'd hurt her. Just this. Family. Connection. The knowledge that she belonged somewhere. Later that night, after Lily was asleep and James had gone home, Emma sat on her balcony and looked out at the city lights. She thought about her father, who had chosen his company over his daughters, and regretted it until the day he died. She thought about Derek, who had chosen ambition over love, and was slowly learning what that choice had cost him. She thought about Marcus Webb, who had chosen power over everything, and was now spending 23 years contemplating that choice in a federal prison. And she thought about Vanessa, who had chosen survival by any means necessary, and was now facing the possibility of becoming someone different. All of them, shaped by their choices. All of them, living with the consequences. Emma had made her own choices. Some had been good, some had been terrible, but she was still here, still standing, still building something that might outlast her. That was enough. It would have to be. Her phone buzzed one more time. A text from an unknown number. "Same time next month?" Emma smiled. "Same time next month?" she typed back. Then she went inside, turned off the lights, and went to bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new complications, new opportunities to choose who she wanted to be. But tonight, she was exactly where she belonged. And that, in the end, was the only inheritance that truly mattered. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever been told you weren't enough, if you've ever wondered what would happen if the person who dismissed you suddenly realized what they lost, this story is for you. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever experienced a moment when someone who underestimated you finally saw your true value? I read every single comment, and your stories inspire future content. If this video resonates with you, hit that like button. It helps more people discover stories that actually mean something. And if you're new here, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. We release powerful stories like this every week. Stories about resilience, justice, and the quiet strength that changes everything. Now, let's begin. Closing statement. Thank you for staying until the end. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with real lessons. We believe that great storytelling should do more than entertain. It should inspire, challenge, and remind you of the strength you already possess. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Until next time, remember, your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. See you in the next story.